down to episode 144 of the Down South Photo Show with me, Brendan Waits, here in Ocean Grove, Victoria, Australia, and the guy on your other screen or in your other ear if you're listening to the podcast. It's Cam Blake in Hobart, Tasmania, Australia, and we have a third window on the screen, wherever he is on our screen. It's a big hello in Orange County, California, to Mr. Nick Carver. Hello, Nick.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Excellent.
Welcome aboard.
Orange County is, how far is that from LA? It's a fair way, isn't it?
As the crow flies, I'd say 40 miles.
Okay.
As the car drives, it can be
2 hours?
From an hour to 2.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've
It's a
just
world
come
away, though. Orange County is very different from Orange County in terms of how it's run and, what the scenery looks like and kind of people you run into.
Yeah, it's not a massive town like LA, I gather. It's a bit smaller than that.
No, Orange County is very small geographically, but very diverse. I mean,
Yeah.
we got like the wealthiest people on the planet and some areas that are very much not that. So
Yeah.
in a small geographical area, you can get quite a variety of California living.
Cool.
People who made their millions out of photography, no doubt, Nick.
Yeah, that's how it's the get rich slow scheme.
Exactly. Well, thanks heaps for joining us. Cam and I are sort of fanboys, so we're probably going to gush over you a little bit as we get through this. So again, we really do appreciate it. Now, you've got a YouTube channel that is growing quite quickly, 120,000 followers on YouTube. Is that right?
Quickly is an interesting term. I've been doing it 11 years, so it doesn't feel quick to me.
Well,
but
yeah,
I guess nowadays, especially with how many people have channels, I'm quite fortunate to have the following, quote unquote, that I do.
Yeah. Well, 11 years is a long time, and they say the first 11 years is the hardest. So we've got a bit to look forward to, Cameron. But between us, we've got 121,000 subscribers.
That's pretty good. Do you mean we've still got another 8 years of doing this before we're not even at 1,000 subs yet? The first 1,000 you said was the hardest.
Apparently it is. Nick can vouch for that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I hope this is the crest, and it's all downhill and easy from here.
Piece of cake, mate. You're well on your way to 1 million. I have no doubt.
I saw the other day you asked for the second time ever someone to press the subscribe button on your videos, which that's something I like about your channel, is that you're not a bit like Ben Horn, who we've interviewed as well. You're not forcing down likes and subscribers on your channel all the time. So it's actually more genuine and more authentic, that you're not trying to con everyone into just following. You're actually putting up good content and excellent photos and stuff like that to make it worth watching, which is good. So we could maybe take a leaf out of that book.
It's been my plan. I don't really like the YouTube model. Of kind of smash that like button, hit subscribe, and here's an ad about Squarespace. And here's a VPN service you should subscribe to. I don't know. Maybe it's because when I got into it, people weren't really doing that yet. But I don't know. I do it. I do the videos more because I want to make the videos. So I don't really feel that need to shove advertisers down people's throats and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also kind of fortunate in that I got a day job, as it were, as a photographer, so I don't really have to play the YouTube game as much as maybe Thomas Heaton does. Or
who's this Thomas Heaton guy? I've never heard of him. Is he any good?
I think he's gonna land on his feet.
Yeah,
he'll figure this YouTube thing out.
Surely
he'll get there.
Surely he's got shares in Squarespace, like the amount of advertising that he does for them. A lot of them, like you said, Squarespace is everyone. I'll just stop this video for our interruption of the Squarespace sponsorship. They must be making $1 million, those mob.
Yeah, I don't know how much they pay because I delete the emails when they come in. But it's YouTube's such a weird business model, especially for photography, because it rewards constant content more than anything.
Yeah.
And eventually you just run out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, how much can you really, really talk about with photography?
Yeah, you just do what we do and just rehash the same subject 3 times.
Well, so do I. Yeah, and so do I. And I don't even post that much.
Yeah.
You just have to. I talk about printing for the 10th time and how I'm printing it. It's like it it's a lot of rehashing. So, you know, if someone's really trying to make YouTube the main thing, man, you got to scrape and scrounge for new stuff to talk about.
Yeah. We just hope our viewers don't go back more than 10 episodes and see that we've spoken about the same thing 10 episodes ago and just rehashed it. So short memories works for us.
Yes.
We have a very loyal fan base. It might be small, but it's incredibly loyal.
Good.
I'm sure yours is too.
Yeah, that's my business model too. I don't really the number of subscribers I'm less interested in. The number of nice emails I get from people is much more important to me. And you know, people I say this all the time. I don't read the comments, so I can't say exactly what everyone is saying, but every once in a while when I come across a comment that's like any sort of indication of, you know, whenever I see a Nick Carver post a video, I click on it and give it a thumbs up before I even watch it. And I'm like, that's what I'm going for. I just want to be reliable as like everything I put out is, you know, watchable at least. But yeah.
Well, that'd be like you and I, Brendan, every time we see a new Nick Carver YouTube pop up, gives us something to watch. It's exciting. You know, you're going to get good value for what you're watching. It's going to be entertaining. There'll be a bit of sense of humor in there, which is something we love about your videos. There's always it's almost a bit of an Aussie humor. We like, you know, taking the piss out of things and have a bit of a laugh at ourselves. So, it's good fun.
Right. That fit right in down there, except I couldn't play rugby to save my life.
That's okay.
Neither do we, and neither does most of the country, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's all good.
Oh, okay. It's not the whole country playing rugby?
No.
No. Well, we've got rugby, and then we've got Australian rules football, which are two different things. But our Australian rules football is a bit like your gridiron, but without the padding and helmets.
Without the padding and helmets, man, you guys got to do everything more badass.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We're just fine. Yeah.
Drugs are more badass. People.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you should bring this up, Nick, because Cam and I have just spent some time in your wonderful country, and one comment we got a lot from Americans was, "How have you lived to the age you've lived to? Because apparently, around every corner, something in Australia will kill you."
Really?
That's as much as a myth as fat, obnoxious Americans are down here, because that just doesn't happen. Like, we had the best time over there. I mean, Cam was there for a month. I was there for 2 weeks. And I mean, without pissing in your pocket, as we say down here, you know, everyone was lovely. Everyone was great. Everyone was really welcoming. Everyone was happy. It just seemed like a very friendly country to be in.
Yeah, and that was during election time as well. Like no one was going too crazy or anything like that. Everyone was pretty happy.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, America's a pretty big and diverse place, so I'm sure some areas hold up the stereotype pretty well. But yeah, there's definitely I don't know, people develop stereotypes about a country, whether it's Australia, everything's going to kill you, or the U.S. The one I hear about the U.S. sometimes, it just kind of cracks me up, is like, people think there's a lot more gun violence than there is.
Yeah.
Like, we saw there's a lot more than other countries.
We saw one open carry gun, one.
Yeah.
In Arizona?
It was Arizona. Yeah.
It was in Page, Arizona, yeah.
Yeah, that's where you'll see it.
Yeah. And the guy, it was quite funny. The other guy was on a trip. My cousin helps us do the little tours that we do. And this guy started up his car and had this massive turbo. It sounded like a jet engine, had this massive turbo. And my cousin's a bit of a car nut. He just went over to walk over to this guy to have a chat about his car. And as the guy turned around, he had his pistol in his pocket, or his hand cannon in his pocket. And Daniel's like, right, okay, well, that's about as much information of the car I need to know. Let's get back to work. But yeah, that was the only place we saw it. And it was 8 o'clock in the morning, some guy loading up his work truck to go to work. It's like, wow. But that was it. So
yeah, Arizona is a unique place in that sense. That's where I've seen it the most. And also, they don't have a helmet law for motorcycles in that state either.
No, they don't.
We noticed that.
It's weird for me coming from California, because you see a dude rolling down the street on a Harley, and he's got a gun on his waist and no helmet. It's man, that guy is
he's going places.
Danger by the balls. He's all about it.
What could possibly go wrong? Now, Nick, when we have people on our channel, we start off with a little little series of questions that I like to call burst mode. And basically it's rapid fire. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. There are no wrong answers. You can take as long as you like to answer them, but make it snappy, please.
Okay. Burst mode. Should Should I put it into AI Servo? Autofocus jokes. Good stuff.
Nick's going to be here for an hour, folks. Try the veal. Question 1. Color or black and white?
Color.
Well, gee, that was a quick one.
That's all what we're after here. This is good.
Yeah, it's good.
Favorite subject matter?
Crappy occupied buildings.
Yeah, see, I had a feeling. If I had to run a book on what your answer would be, it'd be, yeah, that's great.
Very predictable, if nothing else.
No, that's good. What was your first camera?
A Minolta XGM SLR.
Ooh, right, very nice. And with a couple of lenses, or did you have a go-to lens on that bad boy?
Just the nifty 50. I think it was a 1.8. It's actually on my desk back there.
Oh, you've got it there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's
got it at a pawn shop.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And was it one of those things that we'll get into this a bit later, but was it one of those things that was like an impulse buy, or you went, I think photography is for me, I'm going to go and buy this thing, or?
Yeah, I took a class for photography and kind of fell in love with it. So then my parents, being the good parents that they are, wanted to nurture that. So they took me to a pawn shop and let me pick out a camera.
Very nice. Is photography all you do?
In terms of like financial or just in life?
In terms of financial.
Yeah, it's all I do.
Yep. And your all-time favorite camera to shoot on? If you had to pick one.
Shenhao TFC 617A, my panoramic camera.
Yes. That camera's featured on your channel quite a bit, hasn't it?
Very much so. Yeah.
What's your all-time favorite film stock?
Kodak Portra, which feels like a cop-out, but I've gotten so comfortable with it. It's reliable. I know the color palette. I know how it reacts. So I like that one.
Somewhat cheaper than the rest of the film out there as well, I'd imagine.
Especially, Portra 160 is. Portra 400 is a little pricey. But,
It's getting out of control.
Yeah.
What's your drink of choice when you're editing a video?
Diplomatico rum, as is in my glass at this very moment.
All right. Well,
It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here. I did suggest him and I start drinking, which is probably a bit late for us, but
yeah.
Oh, you got a can of it.
There we go.
There we go.
You know, if there's another stereotype we like to fall into, it's that one.
I think I would like Australia.
I think you'd fit in pretty well.
Yeah.
This is today's sponsor, by the way.
Canadian Club. Jesus.
Yeah, you know what? I don't do sponsored videos, but if the right sponsor came along.
Oh, that's right. Nick, if they come knocking, you're not going to say no, right?
Yeah.
Barbecue or salad?
Barbecue.
What's more important?
Does anybody say salad?
You'd be surprised. I tried to eat salad around America for a month, and I got about 2 days in and went, stuff this. I'm not eating any more rabbit food.
There's too much good stuff.
Yeah.
This is the big one, Nick.
Yeah, this is a big question.
There's a big question. We're hanging on your answer. No, we're not. What's more important in a good photograph? Composition or exposure / light?
Composition.
Right answer.
Sure.
If photography disappeared, what would you be doing?
Oh,
see, this is why burst mode's good. It gets them thinking. I like it.
Like, what would I be doing if it disappeared right now, or if I never got into photography?
No. If it disappeared tomorrow, someone said photography is now illegal. You can't do that anymore. Would you still do something creative?
Yes.
Yeah.
The cop-out answer would be some sort of video production, but let's assume that's
gone too.
Into
that's gone too.
photography.
Yeah.
Probably woodworking of some sort.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah, cabinet building or something like that. I really like building things and having an actual finished thing I can look at that shows the work I put into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Where's somewhere you've never shot but really want to? This is
all of the smallest, shittiest podunk towns in the American West.
Yeah.
I know that's a big answer, but I can't think of any one particular town. I just want to.
That's a big region.
All the towns that nobody has shot.
So I reckon where Nick could go really well is outback Australia. Like, we've got heaps of these sort of little towns that are all falling to pieces, old petrol stations or gas stations and old pubs and all these things, just surrounded by deserts and wacky trees and random dingoes and dogs walking through them and stuff like that. I reckon you'd fit really well into outback Australia with your big panorama camera and doing some cool stuff, I reckon.
That sounds like it. Yeah. Yeah. Because all of the places that have been shot a lot are kind of the obvious places to shoot, Iceland and Glacier National Park and Alaska and all that kind of stuff. I really have just zero desire to go to. So anything that like nobody has shot before and is a place that people live in, and kind of photographing the buildings they've made and what their town looks like in this moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the last of our burst mode questions: what's Thomas Heaton really like?
We can bleep this answer out as well if we get to.
Calm. Calm, quiet dude. He's like me. He's just kind of, great guy. Yeah, he's he has the same thing I have, which is you have to play it up a little bit on YouTube, and I get made fun of for that by my wife and my neighbor and my fellow working photographers and everything, because they watch a YouTube video and they're like, well, you got your YouTube persona on and everything. But what I always tell them is, like, if you had to hold someone's attention for 15 to 25 minutes and they're not going to speak back to you, and there's also a really good chance they're taking a dump right now, like, yes, you would have to play it up a little bit just to make sure. Yeah, there's still more to see here on this video. Don't just.
I'll put my hand up. I've had plenty of eye poos watching videos, and
that's right.
That's
honored.
It's well, if that's the level of honor we're going with, then I can agree to that. But
it's a very intimate thing to be.
Well, you don't get interrupted.
Talking photography to you while you're relieving yourself.
Yeah, as long as that's the only relieving you're doing, then that's pretty good, I reckon.
Yeah. So this kind of answers one of the questions I had for you as well. So your YouTube videos, and look, obviously it's all going to be linked below, guys. If you haven't seen this guy do his thing on YouTube, by all means, jump on and have a look. Your videos, Nick, they have a real authenticity about them. Now, you've just exploded that myth a little bit and said that you've got a bit of a YouTube persona. But I think for the masses, and for me definitely, the thing that sort of kept me watching your stuff was that authenticity, and was that, like Cam said, that sense of, taking the piss out of yourself, which we love to do as well. And that the way that you you stay true to yourself, it feels like, on YouTube. Is that the vibe you're going for?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I will say it's definitely authentic. The difference is, because it's a video, I have to verbalize things that are going on in my head. And so I have to make it somewhat interesting. So I can't just have a stream of consciousness coming out of my head, because that would put me on a list somewhere. So I have to vocalize the internal dialogue, and that's what brings the YouTube persona out, because you would never actually do that. And then so it sounds like not what my wife knows, because I'm not doing that to her. At least I try not to.
Well, I remember watching, you did the interview with your wife. I think it was your 5-year anniversary. You did that anniversary thing. It was really funny.
Yeah.
And having never met your wife, obviously, but just the look on her face a few times looking at you, you can almost tell that she's just like, what are you doing, Nick? This is not you. Type of thing. Which is exactly what my wife looks at me and Brendan's wife, no doubt, when they watch this show that we do.
My wife doesn't watch this show.
My wife, does anyone? I don't think anyone watches this show, but if they do, but my wife does the same thing. She's like, "What are you crapping on about? Like just get to the point." I'm like, "Yeah, but you gotta, gotta fluff it up a bit." So, yeah,
it's a different. Like I'm a different person around my brothers than I am, friends. Which I'm a different person around my wife. It's like you have these different things. You kind of meet people at their level, but videos are just weird because you don't really know who's on the other end of it, and like what they're gonna connect with. So
it's an unknown, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's a very strange thing, and like talking to a camera feels still very strange to me. That's why I still can't even have anyone in the room while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
You said something. You said something before as well. Like you're trying to do a video and trying to hold someone's attention for 15 minutes. I've done a few little videos for my photography. Brendan's done these little things as well, and that's probably the one thing I struggle with is just like trying to keep it together for long enough that you think someone's going to be interested in listening to. And a lot of that's editing and structure and the storyboard of what you're doing, which I think you do amazingly well. But it's really hard for people to do that. If you're not a natural or you don't have that sort of creative brain, it's hard to put a video together that's going to keep people's attention for more than a couple of seconds. So to be able to do that regularly, it's a credit to you that you're a great storyteller. And like I said, you mix it in with your great photography and a bit of sense of humor, and it's very entertaining.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a line I try to walk because it's easy to get too fast paced in the fear that people are going to get bored.
Yep.
But then it's also, you can get too slow paced, obviously, because YouTube is like, I generally like slower paced stuff, slower paced movies, things that kind of let it breathe and long cut scenes and all that kind of stuff. That's what I love.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to do more of that in my YouTube videos, but I also have to keep in mind it's a different medium. Like if I was making a video that's going to be displayed in a movie theater, you can let stuff breathe. Like people are there expecting that and they're kind of bought in for the next 2 hours. But YouTube is a specific type of medium, which is, it's not TV, it's not movies, and yet there's stuff on there like movies and there's stuff on there like TVs. So
yeah,
it's hard to figure out the pace. And I kind of just hope whatever my pace is, the audience that likes that finds it rather than, trying to appeal to everybody and making it the pace that I think is going to do well for the algorithm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you definitely strike that balance of letting the picture be worth 1,000 words. You do that quite often, and you're right. You do have parts of your videos with no narration at all. It's just you lining up the shot, getting your head under the cloth, that sort of thing, setting your stopwatch, all that sort of stuff. And I think that's the really intriguing stuff for me, is watching how a film photographer goes about it. Now, I've never played with the medium you play with. And it fascinates me, the process, not least of which is the fact that when you put the cloth over your head, you're looking at an image that is back to front and inverted. We had this conversation with Ben Horn as well. It blows my mind that you're able to get your head around that in the moment. Is there any tips or secrets around that, or is it just something you've gotten used to?
You kind of just get used to it, but I mean, it really only works on very slow shots, so people kind of picture it like, oh, I'm going to do street photography with a camera like that. And it kind of blows their mind like, no way. And I agree, no way. But if it's like a building, or a landscape, like the type of stuff I shoot, it's not too bad. And I actually remember when I was in middle school, there was an art teacher there that said to draw things upside down if you're having a hard time, like getting proportions right. Because what happens is someone goes to draw a picture of, like, let's say an athlete kicking a ball, and it's like, we know what a leg looks like in our head. We know what a foot looks like in our head. We know what a ball looks like in our head. So you start drawing a leg, and then it just looks stupid because you're drawing your idea of a leg rather than like how it looks from that perspective and the way the lines intersect from that angle. And then so the art teacher said, just whatever you're drawing from, like, let's say from a photo, turn it upside down, and then you're literally just drawing the lines. And then when you turn it right side around, the proportions look right. So I think having the image upside down and backwards can help you notice like distracting intersecting elements or lines that kind of steal from each other. When you have lines that are kind of blending into one, things like that. You can kind of start to see those things for just graphical elements rather than, oh, that's the top of a building I'm looking at,
Yeah.
And so I think it can actually help composition a little bit, but you pay for it in speed. It's very, very slow.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic piece of advice. I mean, I never really looked at it that way. The amount of times we've all been there. You're out in the field. You've got photographer's block. You're sort of trying to work out you've got a great scene. You're just struggling to capture it. It'll be fascinating to see to put that into practice. Invert your screen cam. Do you reckon that's a new bit of advice we can give to our listeners?
I reckon you should try some medium format brands. I reckon we should. I've got one here. We can send you that in a box of film and a light meter and a little loop and a shitload of patience and see how you go.
Well, funny you should say that, because I actually shot medium format the other day on an old box brownie.
Reach.
Oh, right, you went real vintage.
They've just been released here in Australia. The box brand.
Yeah, that's right.
They're brand new down here. That's a new. I don't know who this brand Kodak is. I don't think they're going to make it, but they've just released one down here.
But I haven't had the film processed yet, so because it's like 120 roll film, and I've probably got to send it to America.
See, I think that's the beauty of film, which I know you'll understand, Nick and Brendan, and also Ben, when we interviewed him, is there's still something magical about film that. We have the digital cameras, we shoot, oh, look, it looks okay. Oh, I'll fix that bit up. I'll stuff that up a bit, or I'll underexpose, overexpose, whatever it is. But film, you just don't get that luck of seeing it straight away. You've really got to trust your instincts and your skills. And I still think that's the whole gold standard of photography for me still, is that if you can shoot large format or 35mm film or whatever it is, but still get great results out of that and not go through a box of film doing it, to me, that's the fine tuning of a photographer that makes them probably better than everyone else, is that they can do that with film. And it's something that, like, I teach, I run workshops and stuff like that. And that's something I try and install in my guests, is that try and get it right in camera as much as you can. Pretend you're shooting like you're shooting film. Instead of taking 20 shots of that bus behind Brendan with the palm tree, just take 1 or 2 and get it right. Fix those little mistakes as you go. And I think it's something that digital photography sort of maybe ruined a bit with photography, is that it's too easy just to shoot and spray and fix it up later, where what you do, and for other guys that shoot film, it is a slow process, but it's a perfection at the same time. And it's got to be rewarding. Like, I'm sure you get your shots back and you pull the film out of the box after it's been developed and you're like, shit, that worked really well. I'm really happy with that, as opposed to looking at 40,000 files on a computer and just picking one and working on it. So Do you still get it? Do you still get a buzz out of that when you get your film back and you've nailed something well on film?
Oh yeah, that's never gone away, which I kind of expected it to when I got back into film photography, because I started on film photography and then I went full digital, and then I came back to film photography.
Yeah,
and I kind of keep waiting to get bored of that that kind of foreplay, where it's you took the picture and you don't know, is it going to come out? You take it to the lab, you get it back, you put it on the light table, and then there's the scanning process. And it's like, there's so many parts where it's like you can start to get excited about it.
Yeah.
Or the excitement can wane and then it can come back. And like I took a picture recently just up the street for a project I'm working on, and it was kind of a last minute, I'm going to go out and take pictures tonight. I didn't plan it way in advance like I always do. And it was kind of a, I didn't invest in as much into the planning of it as I normally do. And the picture ended up being like one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken so far. And when I got that film back and like put it on the light table, first I can tell by looking at the negative that it's perfectly exposed, and I can see I nailed the focus and the composition's awesome and everything. So I'm getting excited already. And there was also a pre-excitement in the parking lot of the lab, because I always hold it up to my windshield and I got to look at it before I get it home, and just to see if I messed up. I'm mainly there's like those different steps. I first need to confirm I didn't screw it up. Okay, that's a bit of excitement. And then I get it home, I confirm now that I got the exposure right. That's a whole other level of excitement. And the composition's right in the focus. And then I get it, and then I scan it. And then now I'm going to do the color correction. And I see that the colors came out even more beautifully than I remembered, and more beautifully than I hoped they would, because film is rendering it in a different way than my eyes were seeing it. And I'm kind of getting this third wave of excitement of like, it's, discovering how the final picture is actually going to be. And then, by the time I get to the end of it, there's been so many stages of excitement for it that now I'm like in love with this photo.
Yeah.
Whereas with digital, when I still shoot digital for all my client work. So, I take the picture, I look at it immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm still in the moment of being in that environment. So there's no like mystery, there's no separation from the subject. And it's like, there's none of that foreplay. It's like, it's just, okay, yeah, I got it, nailed it. And then what I keep finding over and over when I try to incorporate more digital photography is I get it back to my computer and my excitement has just tanked like immediately. And I struggle to get myself to go through the photos and sort them out.
It's amazing that you say that. We talk about that a lot on the channel. It is that, for me, like just being in the States and going to Zion and going to Bryce Canyon and Grand, all these amazing places. When I got back, I was so excited, and then I started going through the photos, and you're exactly right. It's almost like, how can I put it politely? It's almost like you've shot early, and you're sort of like, you know what I mean?
You climaxed too early, Brendan.
Climax. That's what I was looking for. You climaxed a bit too early, and then I find with digital, and you might find the same, Nick, I'm not sure, but it sometimes takes me 3 or 4 weeks, and I've just got to shelve it and come back to it later. Of course, unless it's for a client or it's a deadline or whatever. But I'm finding I'm just starting to go through my shots from the States now, and I'm much more comfortable looking at them now than I did immediately. And I'm guessing that that's that vibe that you get with the film.
Yeah, definitely. I think, 100%. In digital, people give the argument that you can just treat digital like you do film, like don't look at the screen, limit the number of photos you take and all this kind of stuff. And they're not wrong to make that argument. But I guess I personally don't have the self-discipline to do that, because if I go out with a digital camera, there's no way I'm not looking at the screen. I might start off, I might have my discipline in the beginning, but it's gonna evaporate because it's so easy. It's right there. Like, what am I going to put tape over my screen and like look at?
Or do what Fuji did and bring a camera out that the screen flips the wrong way. So by the time you get to the screen, you're just over it. You don't look anyway. I think as well, I think with digital as well, like you're saying, like with that excitement and the foreplay, as you call it, in the film lead up, when we take the digital shot, like we're in that moment there, like we're reliving that excitement right there on the screen, and it's done and dusted. Like you look at the screen and go, okay, I've nailed that focus, exposure, all good. Whereas the film one is that you're in that moment that you take the shot, and then you get to relive that moment over and over again as you go through those stages. And then I guess the climax would be is when you print it out on a piece of paper, and then you can actually hold it and feel it and see all the beautiful detail of it. To me, that's got to be the climax, so I guess, of the whole process, is that, you've done everything right in the field, you've nailed the exposure, the lab didn't stuff your neg up, which is always good. And then you get it back, and then you get to scan it, and then you get to print it, and it's a whole process. And again, I don't think digital rewards that as much. I think it's all sort of instantaneous right there and then. And like Brendan said, you just move on. Like, you're on to the next shot, you're on to the next scene, and you just don't get to relive that moment all the time like you do with film. So
that's really the reason I shoot it. I think a lot of people assume the reason to shoot film is because of the look or something, but I don't think that's really the main reason, or that most people would even notice, especially if it's getting scanned, you're color correcting it anyway. So it's essentially working on a digital file. And I look at my favorite photos, and I don't think I can pick out which ones are film, which ones are digital from other photographers, So, it's always for the process, the workflow. If that fosters creativity in you, then it's a great reason to shoot film. And all the reasons not to just dissolve. It's expensive, it's slow, it's a pain in the ass, it's hard to travel with.
Which brings me to one of the questions I've got for you. Is that what you find the most challenging thing about continuing to shoot film? I mean, obviously cost is a factor these days, and it just seems to be going up exponentially. Are you finding that is slowing you down a little bit?
Yeah, I've dialed back my shooting a little bit, which is it's it's a tough one for me because I already don't shoot very much. So it's because I'm pretty selective about my shots. But yeah, I mean, it sucks. I don't know how else to put it. It just sucks. But I mean,
Yeah.
Every second you turn around nowadays, they're adding $2 to something. It's like every monthly fee I get an email like every day. It's like, oh, your Netflix is going up, your Hulu's going up, your insurance is going up, your cell phone bill's going up. It's like it's just nonstop, and like I think everyone's feeling the squeeze, and I'm definitely not immune to it. But I try to look at like film photography is what I wake up for. I mean, it is to take pictures on film. And I know that workflow is what gives me the most gratification. So I try to not pay too much attention to it. And it's like, oh, it costs this. That's what it costs. But it's something I have to do. So I can either get upset about the cost or I can just kind of eat it. Yeah. But like, someone just gave me an 8x10 camera, which is a crazy gift. It's one of the perks of having a YouTube channel. And 8x10 is like $30 a frame or something. Yeah. And it's outrageous. There's no reason for me to
Which is like $3,500 Australian dollars. You realize that?
Yeah, that exchange rate.
We can talk about exchange rates. We just spent a month there, and my kids aren't eating for the rest of the year, so
that's fine.
Yeah, Santa's not coming this year.
No. Yet another reason for me to travel to Australia.
Well, yeah. I'm scheming an idea in my head, Brens. We'll talk offline, but I would love to get Nick out here.
You'd be the richest man in the country, mate. So an 8x10 camera. Have you've shot 8x10 before though, right?
Crazy enough, no.
Okay, cool.
I've coached.
Well, this is going to be great for you then.
Oh, it's just playing with the camera is funny, like haven't even exposed anything yet, but I'm gonna shoot some 4x10 on it, and it's one of those things where the expense I can't justify, the extra resolution I don't really need. I already get plenty of resolution from what I'm doing. There's no logical reason to shoot it, but I'm excited about it. Yeah, and that excitement I've just learned from doing this long enough, I can't take it for granted. Like, excitement in photography can disappear, even though I'm in love with photography and my whole life revolves around it. It can disappear. It has disappeared for me. So if there's something that is lighting my fire a little bit, even if it's expensive, even if I can't justify it on paper, I have to do it because it's almost like a maintenance thing. I have to maintain my excitement for photography if I want to be successful at it, and I want to keep doing good work. So,
which is super cool. I mean, aside from the fact that you'd get to say to someone, "Yeah, I shot that on an 8x10," like that's just so cool to be able to say that you've taken photos on an 8x10 setup. Like, I would love to give that a crack one day. That sounds fantastic.
Does your wife know about your other account that you keep all your photography money in and buying film and stuff like that? Do you have one of those?
She's not watching. Don't worry, she's not watching.
Yeah. Does she know about that other account that's got all the extra funds in it to buy $30 a pop film?
I'm an honest guy.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Just completely off topic. We are, as we speak, having a wicked thunderstorm here at the moment. So
really,
if this whole thing cuts out in 2 seconds, you know what's happened to me. Nick,
I'll take over hosting.
Yeah, that's right. I'll just handball it off to you. I'm fascinated by your process, Nick, in terms of how you identify a subject. Now, a lot of your videos, you do a little bit, you do talk about that a bit. You break down sort of how you find subjects and things. Are you one of these guys that drives around and sort of with their head on a swivel and goes, "Oh my God, that I've got to come back to that. I've got to come back to that." What kind of research goes into your subjects?
Yeah, it's a lot of driving around and seeing it. Luckily, I don't really have to make an effort to drive around because I end up driving around a lot for my client work. Yeah. And it sends me to places I would never think to go in the first place. So, my head's always on a swivel when I start seeing, when you start driving into an area and the buildings are starting to get older as you move in, and they're starting to get a little more, just a little shitty, or just the right amount of shitty, and that's when I really perk up and I start paying attention. And I mark things on an app to come back to, and then I use Street View quite a bit to check out a place that I kind of went past too quickly, and kind of scout it. But yeah, I kind of I let the stuff find me more than I used to. I was always actively trying to find new stuff to photograph, but I kind of let it find me now. It tends to work out better that way.
So you just come up with a name for your next exhibition, just the right amount of shitty.
Yeah.
That's a book title right there.
Book title. It's something that we noticed as well, Brendan, when we were driving around Utah and Arizona the other day. And it's something that America does or has an absolute plethora of, is just old rundown towns that you drive past or just off the beaten track. Like there'd be no lack of subject matter for you anywhere in America where you went. Like you're really lucky in that way. It's such a big country with, lots of different things going on there. Like I said before, I reckon you'd really fit into the outback Australia here, but like we might be talking 400 or 500 kilometers between these little towns. Like there's nothing out there, but they are really interesting. But having even just come back from, like when we drove back from Vegas to LA, there's just these little things going on all over the place. And I think I might have said on the way over, we were in the same car, Brendan, we're like, oh, that's a Nick Carver shop there. That's I'm sure that'd be pretty cool.
Your name came up several times on that drive, just from LA to Vegas, mate. We were looking, going, oh, that looks like a Carver scene right there. So, do you see yourself?
That stretch is very fruitful. That stretch from LA to Las Vegas.
Well, do you see yourself as a historian, Nick? Like, you're capturing images of buildings that are already shitty, but they're falling apart or they're going to be destroyed. Do you ever look at it that way, or are you more looking at it purely from an artistic expression, or do you think of yourself as you're capturing a bit of history there?
It's a very interesting question. I've moved more towards that the more I've done this, simply because I've had it a few times where I marked a building I really wanted to shoot, and then it got bulldozed before I could get there, and it's like devastating. I'm like really sad about it, and as I get older, probably I'm starting to kind of appreciate that more, because I'm seeing how much things change over the course of 10 years, and I didn't really notice that when I was younger, or didn't find it sad when I was younger, So yeah, there's definitely an aspect of, I kind of feel like a responsibility to photograph some of these things that I find, because I don't know, just things get so gentrified now, and especially here in Orange County, it's like just everything gets bulldozed, and they put up 5-story high density, quote unquote, luxury living apartments, and like everything is luxury living this, luxury living that, and it's like all the buildings are ugly, they all look the same, and they're all just the most profit driven corporate buildings you can imagine, replacing like this charming crappy motel that I didn't get to photograph before it was gone. I actually had that on a client shoot the other day. I got sent to photograph a building that was like a time capsule of 1969 to 1972. I don't know when it was built, but they hadn't changed the drinking fountains in there. They hadn't changed the ceiling tiles, the lights. It was beautifully perfect in all of its, like, what everyone would consider old, crappy, details. And I was taking pictures of it, and I was sending pictures of it to my friend and my brothers, because we all appreciate that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my friend after, and, we both had the thought of like, it's actually kind of sad seeing these photos, because I know what they're going to do with that building, because I'm there so that they can sell it. Yeah. And the only reason someone would buy this building is to bulldoze it and put up some luxury living. So my friend and I both came up with kind of the same idea, which is like, oh, this kind of feels like taking pictures of your dog before you put it down. Yeah. It's like, it's sad. Like, I'm glad I have the pictures, but really sucks this isn't going to exist anymore. And I'm glad I have the pictures at least, but I get a pretty emotional connection to these buildings that have lived such a long life, and even if they're crappy, even if they're in disrepair, it's like sad to lose them.
Well, I think this is the point as well. Like you not only get to see these buildings, you see them literally in their best light because that's what you chase. You chase the sunrise and the sunset light. I mean, for the most part, sometimes you do shoot middle of the day, but you see a lot of your stuff is, you're there an hour before sunrise, you're there well after sunset to capture it literally in its best light. When it comes to a location, is that the way you think? You see it for the first time, do you then automatically think, right, well, I've got to be here at golden hour, blue hour, etc.? Is that how you dissect the scene?
Yeah, I try and mix it up. I try and do some daytime photos just so that my whole portfolio isn't magic hour. And because I don't want it to be a crutch for one, but I want to have some variety in my portfolio. But you just can't escape good light versus ugly light. It's like it's called magic hour for a reason. It adds a level of magic to these scenes that I tend to prefer. I've been trying to incorporate more like proper sunset light where I'm getting a little streak of light on the building and, modeled shadows and things like that. I'm trying to incorporate that more where the building suits it. But yeah, I mean, that dawn or dusk light, you can't beat it. You can have the ugliest building in the world and it'll look like $1 million in that light.
Yeah. Same goes for people.
Do you find that the film you're using and its sort of, I guess, dynamic range of the film is restrictive on when you do shoot? Like, I've seen some of your stuff where it's sort of been more harsher light and obviously skies blow out a bit and it gets a bit more brighter and stuff like that. But do you find that drives a little bit of you shooting at that both ends of the day based on what the film can handle? Or is it more just, like you said, you like the look of how that building looks with that light? Or
it drives it. Yeah, it drives it for sure. Yeah. And, things online will I think way overestimate the dynamic range of film. Yeah. Partly because you can look at the dynamic range of film in kind of two ways. Like there's the literal dynamic range, like is there literally detail in that highlight? Yeah. And then that counts as being in the dynamic range. But I try and look at it more realistically of like, yeah, but I'm not gonna scan it as this super flat, low contrast image. So those highlights are gonna get pushed and they're gonna get pushed out. So yes, it may technically have a dynamic range of 15 stops, but with the type of edits I want to apply to the image to give it pop, it's going to knock it down to 12 or whatever. Yeah. So I tend to behave as if my film only has like an 8 to 10 stop dynamic range, even though it's probably technically bigger than that. Yeah. And that's actually less than I think a lot of digital cameras now. So that's yet another reason to not shoot film, and yet I still do it because I just there's other aspects to dynamic range, like the shoulder on the highlights. Whether it peaks quickly or whether it clips quickly, and versus kind of shallowing out, things like that.
Tapers out.
Yeah. So there's all those kind of nuanced things about dynamic range, but that's often the deciding factor on whether I shoot something at sunrise or sunset. Is I'm thinking about the dynamic range of the film, and if the sun is going to set directly behind the building and the building is a dark color, that's going to be tough. Yeah, because the dynamic range is just huge. So I may shoot that in the morning. So it's a big factor. But I do really love the tonal curve of film. Yeah, it could probably be mimicked with digital if I was good enough at that. Yeah, but I'm not real good at that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I wanted to go back and touch on something. When you said you got your first camera, you said you got it from a pawn shop. Your parents took you down there. And you've mentioned your brothers a couple of times, so you've been sharing images about it. Is your family very photographic in general, or was it you that had the passion and they've all sort of come behind you, or was it a bit of a thing that was part of the family to start with?
I come from a creative family. Okay. I will say that. My dad's an optometrist. He's an eye doctor, but when he was a teenager, he was in a band that recorded at Capitol Records, and he's an amazing musician. He hasn't played in a long time, but amazing musician. My mom's an amazing artist in terms of watercolor painting and drawing and everything. She thinks she sucks, so she never does it, but she's amazing.
Yeah.
And then my oldest brother is an amazing musician and amazing videographer. And then my middle brother, between me and my oldest, he's a coder, but he has good taste. He's into photography. He's a drummer. You know, we're not so good at throwing the football, but like when it comes to, you know, picking a good color palette and picking a good vibe in a video, we got that nailed down pretty good. So I'm glad I came from that type of family, even though it wasn't super convenient going through school, not being so good at sports, but you know.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you say throwing a football. On the second trip that we did around Utah, my cousin and I actually YouTubed how to throw a gridiron properly. Like we can throw cricket balls and all that kind of stuff, but we were throwing we had this little baby gridiron and it was coming out all warped and looking like shit. So we actually YouTubed how to throw a gridiron in Capitol Reef National Park. We were in the car park there while our guests were out taking shots at the nice autumn trees. We were there throwing this ball around the car park. So we got pretty good at it over a couple of weeks, but yeah, that's interesting.
If only YouTube had been around when I was in high school.
Well, exactly. It's just something.
Can I just pick up on something? I love hearing that your parents were creative and you feel like that's siphoned down onto you. My mum was an incredible artist as well. She could play piano by ear. She could paint. She could draw. She was amazing. But it sounds like your mum was quite similar in terms of never gave herself any credit and always thought she was no good at it. And yet everyone kept telling her how amazing she was at it. And I feel like now that's come to me, but I'm happy to share. I'm happy to give that out to the world. Do you feel the same way, Nick?
In terms of kind of the low self-esteem aspect of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that has waned a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks to YouTube. And
do you know, you can tell, you can actually tell with your older videos. I think, yeah, definitely. And as you've gained confidence in yourself, which is brilliant. It's so cool. I mean, you know, I think the last video you put out with the Spanish rodeo, was it, or Mexican rodeo? That was amazing. That was one of my favorite Nick Carver, and I'm not pissing in your pocket. That was my favorite Nick Carver videos I've ever watched. It was fascinating. Cool. that process.
I was worried that video would be a little disappointing because I didn't have much on location footage, but I'm glad to hear that. You got a pretty good response on that video too, so I think maybe it struck a chord with people. But yeah, because I've been doing this so long, because I mean I got into photography in the year 2000, so I've been doing this 24 years, and it's like so much of that time was doubting my own style and doubting my skills and doubting the direction I was taking more than anything. You know, like, is this what I should be shooting, or is this going to be work that anyone cares about? And I've gone through so many dips and so many just like, I guess depressive states would be the best term for it. But in my photography, where I'm just utterly depressed, I just want to give it up. I hate all my work and, you know, all the usual stuff. I've gone through that enough times that I'm a little more stable now, in that I'm just much more willing to take the pictures I want to see, more than what I think is going to be the right move or the right picture to take, or what I should be taking, or anything like that. And that's just it's a level of comfort that's taken me a very long time and a lot of effort to get to, and it's comfortable. And I think that's one of the greatest things about getting older, is you just kind of relax about that stuff a little bit in general.
You let a bit of it go, don't you? You let a bit of
you just let some stuff go.
Don't sweat the small shit.
Yeah, and you kind of realize it's all bullshit anyway, and it's like, it's not. What's going to happen if you go take that picture you think is rad, but everyone's going to hate? Like, you know, what happens? It's nothing. Yeah.
I actually had the exact same conversation with a customer about an hour before we jumped on I had to drop off a calendar to her, and she was talking about some of the stuff that she just printed. And she's like, "Oh, I can just see all these little imperfections in this print." I said, "Do you like it? Do you like the shot?" She goes, "Oh, I love it. It's just there's a couple of little things." I've said, "If you like it, then that's all that matters." She goes, "Oh, but what about if someone picks up that error?" I said, "Who gives a shit? If you like it, if you enjoyed the moment, if you enjoyed that place where you were." It was of the Southern Lights, the Aurora Australis lights down here that we get in Tasmania. And she was all worried about the saturation and all that. I'm like, "But do you like it?" She goes, "I love it." So it was a great moment. I knew exactly where I was. I'm like, then that's all that matters. Just let the other shit go. Who cares what people think? As long as the process was enjoyable for you and it makes you want to go do it again, then that's a win. And I think in the day and age of social media, like, YouTube, Instagram, all those kind of things, everyone's trying too hard to get noticed and trying too hard to impress other people, when they're probably forgetting that the one person you need to impress is yourself when it comes to photography and art. You've got to enjoy it. You've got to love what you're doing and love the moments that you're in. If you're just doing it to try and satisfy other people, then like I said, you're going to have these troughs of depression and throwing your camera out and then bringing another camera in or ripping up film or whatever it might be. You just got to enjoy it. And that's something we try and push big time on this show, is that, photography is just more about enjoyment more than anything. If it gets you out and about and enjoying it, then, that's the number one goal, really. And if you can create some nice shots, even better.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's, the social media is definitely an aspect to it. And, especially if you're trying to do it professionally, it gets a little messy because you kind of have to factor that in. You have to, you have to try and get eyeballs on your stuff. Otherwise you're not gonna survive financially.
Which is a shame, isn't it? It's a shame that sometimes it's got to be that way.
Yeah. And I don't, I was talking about this with my friend the other day. I feel like no matter what professional you talk to in any line of work, they'll tell you to not get into their line of work.
That's so true.
My friend was talking to someone who opens restaurants, and my friend is kind of interested in opening a bar someday. And the guy's like, "You know what? It's such a pain in the ass. You wouldn't want to do it." And it's like, and yet that guy is still doing it. Like he's opening restaurants all the time. So photographers are no different. Every professional photographer you talk to will tend to be like, "Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend it." And I'm kind of in that boat, not because it's like, it's not a great moneymaker, which it isn't, but it's more, it just really complicates your relationship with photography. And it's taken me a pretty long time and a lot of practice to kind of be able to compartmentalize, like, the stuff that stresses me out about making a living at it versus the stuff about it that makes me really happy. Because if those start to intermingle too much and I start to confuse one for the other, then I start to hate photography, when it's really, I just hate the business of it. And if I don't make sure I go out and enjoy the good side of it, and it's all the shitty business side of it, then I want to quit. That's where YouTube has actually been a pretty big savior for me, in that it gives me a very clear delineation between shooting the stuff I like to shoot and shooting the stuff I have to shoot, because I never do YouTube videos on the stuff I have to shoot. And I only make YouTube videos if it's something I really want to shoot. So as soon as I get into YouTube mode, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying what I'm shooting, and it's not like a stressful, got to make money on this thing. That's, as we were talking about earlier, that's a lot of the reason I don't do live read ads. I don't try and put out X number of videos every year. I don't have targets on how many subscribers to get or anything. That I don't do anything that's going to taint the waters over on this thing that is giving me the good side of photography. Because as soon as I start having to do a Squarespace read, or I have to do something like that, now it's getting muddied up with the other stuff that I hate. And then I could risk hating film photography, which would be a tragedy for me.
Yeah. Well, we've mentioned Squarespace enough now. This will probably get monetized now, and they'll give us get a check in the mail, surely. Nick, I kind of promised it would only keep you for an hour. This has been a wonderful chat so far, but I just have to ask you, what's in store for Nick Carver? What's the future? Do you have plans to just keep doing what you're doing? Is there a project on the horizon that you're keen on, or what are you looking forward to, Nick?
Short term, I really want to figure out this next online course that I want to put out, which will be
This is the printing one, yeah.
And color profiles and all that kind of stuff. I'm really struggling with it because it's a much heftier topic than
that's a big topic.
Thought. Yeah, and I'm just debating on how to break it up and how to communicate it so that people actually understand it and everything. So that's kind of my short-term goal, is to get that thing really dialed in and something I'm really proud of, and then put it out for sale. Long-term, kind of the big goal that I'm perpetually looking forward to is doing like a proper book, whether it's from the Dead Inside series that I'm working on, or some other project. I would love to just have like a really professional book, and like, you know, a hard copy book, big format that you could put on a coffee table and, you know, open it up anytime you have someone over to really try and impress them. That would be kind of the pinnacle for me.
Would you do it? Would you do it like have a rum or a whiskey that goes with each photo? You know how the menus say, have this steak and have this beer. You could have like a different
QR
section
code to order some.
That's not a bad idea, Cam.
QR code. Here's your next bottle of rum to enjoy the book. There you go. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
There's a photo you've got, and I've wanted to tell you this to your face forever. So here it is. The photo you've got of a railway carriage. I think they call it a hopper. Is that right?
Yeah.
That shot. And this, I just think it's one of the greatest photos I've ever seen. I absolutely love that image. And I remember you were going through the process of having it printed, I believe, for either your studio wall behind or your office wall behind you there. And I think it ended up in your exhibition, did it not? Oh, is it right? Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Can you ship that over to me, please? I'll take it.
I'd love to. So that was in the exhibition I did.
Yeah.
And then someone bought it, but he hasn't been able to get it yet. So I've been holding on to it for him. But yeah, that one's a crowd pleaser. It looks really good in person too, because I printed it on metallic paper. Right. And because it's a metal train, it looks like you're looking at like a real metal train. So
I think that's what did it for me, was the way it caught the light off the metal surface. And then, I mean, it's hard for it to come across properly on a YouTube video, but I just know that would have printed so well, that shot. Yeah.
Actually, there's quite a mess behind me. I'm normally not this messy, but I've been making prints for Christmas orders, because I have a holiday sale going on right now. And
is Christmas coming up? I wouldn't have known.
I know. Although you guys have hot Christmas down there, which is
we do. Yeah, if it's not 40 degrees on Christmas Day Celsius, it's not Christmas Day.
God, that is so.
I'll tell you what,
out of my realm of reality.
What did my head in was when I was in America last year. We went through Moab, and they had a Christmas pageant thing going down the main street, and it was freezing cold. I was freezing my ass off. I'm like, why is it so freaking cold at Christmas? This doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it's although having a white Christmas, that's got to be on the bucket list for most Australians, I reckon.
So is your Santa like our Santa, where he's wearing
he's
and everything?
Yeah, he's sweating his ass off is what he's doing.
If you go around to all the shopping centres or the malls around Australia in Christmas, I can guarantee you 20% of the Santas are passed out from heat exhaustion while they got a kid on their lap, because they got so much crap on. They've got the beard and the hat and the jacket. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for them.
But let me tell you something. There's a couple here in Ocean Grove where I live. I'm on the beach, Nick, and they've cottoned onto the idea. And last weekend they did Santa photos on the beach with Santa in, like, you know, flip-flops and a T-shirt, and it was actually awesome. And the photos look great, and everyone are bringing them into me to print them, and they've got a surfboard instead of a Christmas tree. You know, it's cool.
Is it still a fat white bearded guy, or like?
Yeah. No. Nick, actually, he looked like you in a Santa beard.
Right.
Oh wow. That's. Man,
and the other thing we do
world down there.
The other thing we do for Christmas is we have barbecues for Christmas. You know, you can have a.
Ooh, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, barbecue, a couple of cold beers, and you know, just watch the relatives get drunk and fight with each other. It's pretty normal. Just
hot. Sounds like our 4th of July.
Yeah. Well, it pretty much is. Nice. Yeah.
And I believe
Our Independence Day, for anyone who doesn't know what 4th of
Yes.
well, you
Yeah.
isn't Thanksgiving's quite soon, isn't it, for you?
It's like tomorrow or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually this Thursday.
This Thursday. There you go.
Yeah, 2 days
Happy
away- 2 days
Thanksgiving to
away,
those
so,
who
yeah.
celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I always wondered about that, about Australia, because I just like all the songs, you know, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. And
Yeah,
all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
we
like-
got all those. Yeah.
Yeah. We play them, but they're completely irrelevant to where we are. Yeah.
Do reindeer pull Santa's sleigh, or do you guys have some summer appropriate animal?
There is
Kangaroos.
kangaroos. A lot of kangaroos will pull the
Oh,
sleigh.
really?
Yeah.
I was going to suggest kangaroos, but I didn't want to be bigoted or something.
No, you can't be on this show.
Nick,
Yeah.
we better wrap it up. This has been absolutely brilliant, and hopefully somewhere down the track we'll get you back on, because we could easily talk to you for 3 or 4 episodes about what you do. We encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because, as I say, you're an inspiration to us. And this has been kind of weird because I felt like I knew you long before we actually got to meet today. So, yeah, 100%. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, agree.
It's a
Thanks.
pleasure,
Thanks.
man. I love talking photography, so it's always a pleasure. Yeah, and I'd love to be back on if you guys have more to talk to me about. I'm all ears.
Yeah, we'll just rehash it. That's what we do. We just do it
Yeah.
again in a year's
Give it
time.
enough time, you know.
Yeah.
Wait until the next Christmas and then
Yeah.
annual thing.
Well,
Yeah.
you got to get yourself down to come down and have an Australian Christmas one year. Then you'll
Yeah,
really see what it's all about.
then I'll be really worldly.
You will.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So thanks, Nick. Of course, all of Nick's stuff is linked in the description. We'll put all over our socials as well. So thank you again for your time, Nick. So this is where we wrap things up. This has been episode 144 of the Down South Photo Show. We'll see you. Maybe you'll see me. I don't know if we'll see Cam. Cam's heading off somewhere, but
I'll be around somewhere.
we'll see you for episode 145 next week. Bye for now. Thanks again, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.